Social media users often invent conspiracy theories to explain things in overly complicated ways. And that's also what happened with the attack in Australia, which we saw during Hanukkah at Bondi Beach, where a Muslim attacker started killing the people who were there at the Jewish event. And one of the theories that started, and in fact all the theories started to converge on this, is that it was the Mossad. Mossad carried out the attack on Jews. Something extremely stupid because the Mossad is precisely an organization that has helped Jews from its founding up to this very second. So let's debunk that story. And the first thing is to explain this image, which is a popular image that's going around. And I don't know who this freak is that shared the image, but he writes like this. He wasn't Pakistani, nor as the Mossad wanted. They were Jews, and a Muslim disarms him. Yes, a Muslim, and saves many lives. Okay, let's look at the image. This is really the image he shared, and it's someone named David Cohen who is the supposed attacker. Yes, they claim it's a Facebook profile you can search for, but it doesn't exist. It says he's a proud Jew, family, faith, and let's see what it says in Hebrew. Ahrur, a non-existent letter, Shababa, words that make no sense, no language on that wall here. It says, I don't know what that is, no language. The message from Tel Aviv says Israel has new friends. Yes, that makes no linguistic sense. And his friends are Jewish Bronen, that is Judeo Bronen, Judeo Maryland, and a man who made up a name that at least I didn't know, which is Rickel Patyam. Okay, so here he is celebrating his supposed bar mitzvah and other things made by artificial intelligence. A round of applause for the era we're living in, where any idiot can write. Take the image of the attacker and say, make me a Chagipiti Gemini Mano Banana profile, make me a profile of this person, if not bar mitzvah. Then it spreads on social media, and there are people with such a low, tiny intelligence quotient that they really believe, oh look, it was the Mossad. But why do people do that? Why do they make up such crazy theories? I'm going to show you one of the people who is doing this the most right now and is causing a lot of harm with this topic. Her name is Candace Owens. She is one, I would call her a comedian from the United States, although there's nothing funny about her. She is a supposed intellectual, but her intelligence quotient is just as low as the person who believes those artificial intelligence photos. She spends her time creating conspiracy theories. For example, do you remember the influencer in the United States at a university who was shot, Charlie Kirk? Well, according to her, she knows who shot Charlie Kirk. It was Israel. It was the Mossad, with the approval of her friends. And she started making up a whole theory to blame Israel. Why? Because it's always Israel. Obviously, it's Israel who... I mean, it's not enough that it's the Mossad who saves Jews, even in Ethiopia, who carried out the whole operation so they could go through Sudan and save them. Even the Mossad itself, the one that carries out operations for Jews who are in Yemen and does everything possible, that's the Mossad, which is going to send Jews to someone named David Cohen. An artificial intelligence image to attack Jews in Australia. Does that make sense to you? Just to give you a bit of context. Did you know that in the history of Australia, as far as I know, since World War II, Australia had never expelled a diplomat from their country? They'd never done that before since Australia is very passive. Would you say that's true? It's true that they have missions with their soldiers in certain parts of the world, that's true, but it's a country that doesn't have conflicts with anyone. If you think about it, Australia recently expelled the Iranian ambassador from Australian soil. Why did they expel the Iranian ambassador? Because Mossad showed Australia evidence that Iran was planning to carry out attacks inside Australia, and Australia considered that a violation of its sovereignty. So it's Mossad who warns them that there are going to be Islamist attacks coordinated by Iran on Australian soil. How on earth? How could Mossad be the one carrying out the attack if it's Mossad who's helping Australia prevent attacks? Do you see the inconsistency? People must create the wildest theory possible. There's a photo of the attacker. The police have already released the attacker's name. There's a photo of him, of his gun license. That's it. They have it. Images of the person studying in Islamic studies. The record came out that the attacker at Bondi Beach was part of the Dawa organization in Australia. I'll explain what Dawa in Australia is. All that evidence isn't enough. It's not enough that there was an Islamic State of Iraq and Syria flag there at the scene, that he literally put an Islamic State flag in his car. The video I'm going to show you next shows the first person who tried to stop the attacker. We saw the video of Ahmed Al Ahmed, which is the video everyone saw, and a Muslim who went and disarmed a terrorist, and all of this. But before that, in the very first second when the attack was about to start, a Jewish man, an elderly person, very old, with his wife, whose names are Boris and Sophia, he tried to disarm him, fell, and they became the first victims. If you watch the famous video, the long video of the attack, there's a couple lying lifeless on the ground. They are the first victims because he tried to disarm him, and he's going to show you the video of how he tries to disarm him. But in the attempt, what the attacker does is go to the car, take his second weapon, and ends his life, Boris's life. So are you going to show it on the screen? Alright, there you can see how the suspect fell. He fell when he was being detained. Yes. This was recorded by a passing car. If you look, he takes the weapon away from him. He stops him, takes the rifle from him, and detains the attacker right there. But he tries to hit him, apparently. And look, that's the detail. You see what's in front of the car? That's the flag of the Islamic State. It's the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria flag. Unfortunately, I'll stop the video here. The attacker enters the car and kills him. So, what other proof do people want? Are people so unreasonable that they can't admit it? And call evil by its own name and say, yes, that's Islamism, Islamism. They're the ones carrying out all these attacks. I'll tell you another time when it wasn't Mossad either. Obviously, when on September 11th in the United States, what happened at the towers? Well, it's attributed. Many say no, it was clearly Israel, the Mossad. Yes, even with so much evidence, and moreover, everything is known. Al-Qaeda, Bin Laden, and Bin Laden's confession. And videos, here I'll show you on screen, videos of the Palestinians celebrating the attacks. But was it the Mossad? People got so trapped in their own narrative that they can't escape from it, and they end up lying to themselves to deny what they know is happening. I'll give you an example nowadays, like how people have to accept identities and this whole spectrum of postmodernist truths. So if someone comes up to me and says, "Hi, I'm a cat," since I know at least a little bit about biology, I look at the person, I see they're not a feline, I don't see a tail, and I say, "Hey, you're not a cat, you're, as far as I can tell, a Homo sapiens, you're a human being." But the person is going to get offended. And since they're going to get offended, they're going to say, "No, you're transphobic," or something like that. But there's an objective reality that their narrative is not going to accept. If he tells a woke person, "Hi, I'm a cat," how should they respond? The woke person must say, "Yes, you're a cat, I accept your identity. My pronouns are they, them," so is he going to stop him? "Ah, hello, they, how are you all doing then?" Language and reality must change even when the person knows. He's not a cat. You have to say it's not that it's a social construct. Animals are a construct we made because of biological hierarchy, and they're going to have to make up any kind of nonsense. So the same thing happens with this conflict. The same thing, that is, not being able to call the problem by its name is exactly what's keeping them from evaluating the solution. I'll give you an example from medicine. If you go to a doctor and the doctor sees that the pain, that the reason for the problem is one thing, but he prescribes you medicine for another illness, are you going to get better? The answer is no, the answer is never, because if a person has an illness, they need the cure for that illness. That's called a diagnosis. Without a correct diagnosis, you can't have a prognosis. So what happens with society now is that they're afraid. The diagnosis is that radical Islamism is causing chaos everywhere. These people start to see conflicts in the world and see what's happening in Syria. What Jabhat al-Nusra, Islamic State of Iraq and Syria Daesh, no, that's not Islam. No, 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 that's Mossad. That's Benjamin Netanyahu. And because Benjamin Netanyahu wants to create greater Israel, what that Boko Haram is destroying everything? People in Nigeria? No, 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 no. Boko Haram is not Muslim. No, no, no. That's Israel. That's Mossad. Why are they striking a deal with the United States to extract the stones? No, it's not Islam. It's never Islam what happens at Christmas markets now that the people are Christians. The terrible Christmases that are happening in Europe, which are being cancelled one by one in every European place, they are cancelling them. They are cancelling festivities they've celebrated for generations. By whom? No, clearly it's due to the Mossad, not the Islamic radicals who can't tolerate it. What? Statistically, every decade they've carried out attacks every year at Christmas markets. Every year they commit attacks. But it's not Islam, it's the Mossad. That's how they are. It's the Mossad. So that's the big problem. If you see, for example, do you remember these radicals? For example, the Taliban destroying the archaeology over there, or also Daesh destroying Nineveh and all these archaeological sites. No, it's not them. It's the Mossad trying to steal and sell the pieces. It's always the Mossad, always Israel, always Netanyahu. Everything is Netanyahu's or the Jews' fault. We are powerful. It's our fault since we control the climate and the lives of those losers. And them, do they really believe that? When they do badly on a test, do you know why they do badly on a test? Because of the Jews, of course, it's the Jews' fault. You know, when things go like that for them, they always start making up such stupid things. My brother told me that once when he was in the army, he was on guard duty in Hebron, and suddenly a kid showed up with a knife. A kid. Obviously, we already know who are the only kids with knives who are going to commit those atrocities in the name of Allah. So, the kid went to try to attack the police and they were able to neutralize him. It was relatively simple. They asked him, "What is the kid doing?" And the kid started to cry and said, "It's not that I failed an exam, and if I go home and show my father that I failed, he'll beat me. So I prefer to be a martyr because if I'm a martyr, my family will love me and I'll go to heaven and I'll be elevated." So you say, wow, Islam has such a central role in a child's life that it will push him to do something so negative. Whose fault is it then? The Mossad's, right? Because Israel, because we're in Hebron, so it's the occupation's fault, right? Even though Hebron is a city that has belonged to Israel for millennia, but it's the Jews' fault, not that religion's, which promises that child that if he goes and kills a Jew, he'll go to paradise. That's not the fault. The fault is Israel's. That's the narrative we're hearing nowadays. You go on social media, everything is Israel's fault, of course. On October 7th itself, what do they say? It's not that you didn't see. It's that Netanyahu was giving money to Qatar and let suitcases from Qatar go into Gaza. And let's say Netanyahu let $1 billion from Qatar go into Gaza. The money is still from Qatar, a Muslim state, and the group inside Gaza is still Muslim. The problem is something else. Whether Netanyahu let it happen or not is a relevant issue, but it doesn't solve the main problem. People will examine the problem and ask, October 7th happened, but how did it start? How was it possible? If Israel has super technology and a security fence and the Iron Dome and sensors, how is it possible? Well, then it's a suspicious theory. Maybe Netanyahu did it so he wouldn't be removed from power and so he wouldn't have to go to trial. So he did October 7th. That makes no sense. But you criticize the Australian police delay. How long did Israel take to respond on October 7th? What happened in Australia wasn't because the police were slow. That's not the criticism. What happened in Australia was because there was an Islamic attacker who attacked. There are two different issues. I also have criticism about the army that they closed army units, but that's a separate issue. Here the point is that there was an attack. In fact, why do we need an army defending us like this with everyone being ready? Gabriel, why do you think we need our whole army at the Gaza border? Maybe they should be the ones to lay down their arms. That's the real issue. We're not the ones who have to be on alert, building iron domes and standing by. They're the ones who have to stop launching missiles. That's what needs to be happening. So, your criticism, I think the Australian police are incompetent. You can see it in videos like one hiding behind a car. In Israel, the soldiers fought. It's the same syndrome of no. The solution is supposed to be if we have stricter gun control, we'll control the weapons more. Believe me, with or without control, radicals will find a way to make weapons and make explosives and do it. And the message I want to tell you is to face the truth and the message, which is a lot of my audience. I think 99% have their feet on the ground, but to the audience watching this video, and it's precisely on the other side, on the side of people who live in parallel realities or who live in reality, but it's hard for them to face reality because they're trapped in a narrative where they have to lie to themselves, look in the mirror, slap yourself, and say to yourself, I have to react and understand that reality is something else. I can't keep saying that if I criticize Islam, they're going to call me Islamophobic. Well, let them criticize me for Islamophobia. But if just for saying that there are components of Islam that lead to extreme violence, well, call me whatever you want. Do I care? It's a fact. Over 60,000 attacks occurred worldwide in just 2 decades. We're talking about something that has no place and no proportion. Most modern wars are caused by this ideology. So, let's wake up. Okay, that's it for the broadcast. Don't fall for stories and theories as harmful as that one, and I send you a big greeting. Israel, we will triumph. Israel, we have been here for a long time, and we will be here forever. They are dust that will pass and be remembered, like those black stains throughout history that just tried to rot the world even more. And those who, around those stains, tried to make up theories to blame the victim and started saying, no, the Mossad and the... We know they will pass, I am sure of it. We are on the right side, on the side of history. We are on the side of truth. So if you are also on that side, react. I send you my regards. Now truly from Israel.